This is the Photography is My Passion podcast, episode 9. In this episode, we're going to offer tips on selling your images. Okay, you're interested in selling your images. The best advice I could give you right off the top is don't quit your day job. It's very difficult to make a substantial amount of income by selling your own images. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is something that is difficult to do, especially at the beginning. Like any other business, you're going to have to work at it and you're going to have to build it up. So we're going to just talk about some things and some ideas of how you could market your photography and sell either prints or digital images. Now, let's talk about probably the most talked about thing or idea of how to sell images, especially for those who aren't full-time photographers, and that's to use a stock photo agency. And you're going to hear a lot of conflicting opinions about using stock photo agencies and a lot of negativity probably about stock agencies. And where you're going to get a lot of the negativity from is from older photographers such as myself. And let me explain my position first, and then maybe you'll better understand. I'm 56 years old, and back in the day, I used to use a stock agency. I'm talking in the 80s, and it was called Freelance Photographers Guild. They later changed their name to FPG International. Now, this was before there was digital photography and before there was Photoshop or anything like that. And we used to shoot slide film. And my agent was in New York, and I used to send them usually 50, maybe 100 images at a time. So slide film through snail mail, mailed to New York, and they would go through the images, and sometimes they'd only keep 6 images, and they'd send back 44 or 90, 94. So they'd keep 6, and you might think that's horrible, but actually that was pretty good, because the way it worked is they only kept the images they knew they would sell, and they'd send back the ones they knew they couldn't sell. They weren't in the business of just stockpiling images. They kept the images that they knew there was a market for. And within a month or two, I'd have at least one sale out of probably all those images. And the best part was, the cheapest, the smallest check I ever received was $67.50. That was the smallest check I ever received for a sale. Most of the sales were between $100 and $200, and those were for one-time rights, and they'd sell the image over and over and over again. Now, an advantage for me is, like right where I'm standing now, I could get in my car and it would take me about probably 10 to 15 minutes to drive to Niagara Falls. So I used to have a lot of pictures in Niagara Falls, and those were very marketable. I sold a lot to travel magazines, travel books. Funkin' Wagnalls used to put out travel guides. I used to sell a lot to them. Calendars, posters, things like that. Companies that made, that type of stuff would be in the market for pictures of Niagara Falls. So, I used to sell quite a bit. Now, even then, at that larger money, I wasn't selling enough to make a living, but it did supplement the income that I was creating from my wedding photography, portrait photography, my event photography. So it was a nice, a nice little padding, to make a little money. Now, today, of course, it's totally different. You have these so-called micro stock agencies. And the reason why they're called micro stock is because you're getting micro payments. Whereas my smallest check was $67.50, your largest sale probably won't even be a tenth of that. Usually the sales are really minuscule. Depending on the agency you're using, there's Shutterstock, Dreams Time, Dollar Photo Club, I could go LMA. They might give you 30% to 50% of the sale, but the sale usually is just for a few dollars. So you're just going to make a very small amount of money per sale. The idea is, though, nowadays, is that you need a catalog of thousands of images. So there are people that make 6-figure incomes doing stock photography, but they have probably 5-figure of number of images, meaning 10,000 or more images on various stock photo sites. And they're making sales continually, and those micro payments are adding up. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, just remember you should really be committed to it and try to send a lot of images to multiple agencies. Now, you might be enticed. Some agencies might offer you a bit more, a higher percentage, if you're exclusive to them. Generally, you shouldn't do that. You should try to get your images to as many agencies as possible and forego that higher percentage. The advantage is it's just you have so many more chances to make a sale, even if it's at a lower percentage, having an image out to maybe 6 different photo agencies. The disadvantage, beside maybe losing that extra 10% or so that you would have made, every now and then they might get a big hitter that looks at an image and they want to buy more than the standard rights that that agency sells. For instance, they might look at Shutterstock and they see an image you have. Let's say it's Dole pineapple and you have a beautiful image of a pineapple. Well, Dole wants to use this in their advertising campaign, but they want it exclusive. They don't want your picture of pineapple being anywhere else. They don't want a competitor using that same picture or anything like that. So they want to buy specific rights to your image that are going to be exclusive for a given length of time. Maybe it's a year or 2. So we're talking about a substantial amount of money. If you're not exclusive to that agency can't guarantee them an exclusivity to that image because you have it at other sites. Now, the chances of that happening are really slim, all right? So you're still better off just not being exclusive to one agency and sending images out to multiple agencies. Every agency has different requirements for submissions. You're going to have to really school yourself on the different agencies and what they need, and especially for your initial submission. They might only want 10 images, they might want 6, things like that. So you're going to have to really educate yourself on the different agencies and what they want, especially for that first submission. You're going to get rejections. The number one cause of rejections from these agencies is noise in the image. Everything I've read and heard about, it's noise in the image. So get a good noise reducing app or plugin for whatever you're using. If you're a Lightroom user, a Corel Draw user, a Photoshop user, there's all types of plugins to reduce noise. I use Topaz Denoise, but there's others out there that are just as good as Topaz Denoise. Maybe there are some that are better. Look at a good app to get rid of noise and reduce noise in your image. Also, they're going to have specific requirements for the size of the image, the resolution of the image, and you have to remember all that. You can't expect to be a wildlife photographer with a 50mm lens and you're just going to crop all the way in, because the resolution of the image and the size of the image are just going to be too small for these stock agencies. So, you could still get away with a crop sensor camera, but you can't crop the image as much afterwards. So stock agencies, they're good to supplement your income. To really be successful at it, you really have to be dedicated at it and really go out and take some specific images for stock. A lot of things a lot of these agencies will have want list or what they'll need. When I peruse and look at what they need, they usually need business-oriented images. If you have a studio and you could, with some models, and you could create some type of business look, like men in suits shaking hands, women with, business attire on, relating maybe to a computer or maybe a whiteboard or something like that. All that stuff, that's usually what they want, stuff like that. Also found that travel images sell good. Again, because I'm so close to Niagara Falls, that would be an advantage for me. But if you live close to the Grand Canyon or you live close to, something that is, a tourist attraction, stuff like that would be something that a stock photo agency would be interested in. And you'll see a lot of times in the write-ups, they don't want pictures of macros of flowers, they don't want landscape shots. I mentioned that once before in a video, and somebody emailed me and said that they are on stock agencies and they sell stock, or they sell landscape images. I'm not saying you won't sell them, and I'm not saying that a stock agency won't accept them. I'm saying that if you want to really sell a lot of something, then you'd be better off if you could do a business-oriented image, a travel-oriented image, something like that. And then you'll sell more readily than you would of just a generic landscape of the countryside, something like that. The other thing with stock agencies that changed a little bit from the time when I was doing it is they want a model release no matter what. If there's a person in the shot, they want a model release. Even if they're not recognizable, they're going to want a model release. Main reason is they just want to avoid litigation at any cost, and most of it is automated nowadays, so they don't have the manpower to verify when they look at your shot that these people are definitely, you know, not recognizable. So they want model releases. Back when I did it, if a person, I could have the back of a person's head in the shot. It was fine. If they were recognizable, I needed a model release. But like I said, things have changed. So be aware of model releases and when you need them. You may also need property releases. Buildings are trademarked, and the shape of, you know, a famous building, the Hancock building, something like that. You just can't send an image of that building, a picture of that building. They'll require that you have a property release for something like that. Even a dog picture, you'd need a release from the owner of the dog, you know, or, you know, just because they own that, it's property, you know, a dog, cat, whatever bird, it's somebody's property. So you're going to need a property release. And again, you'll find all this on the stock photo sites, the requirements and what they want, and how to go about doing a submission to them. So to sum up, stock agencies, micro stock agencies, payments are very, very small, but the idea is that you want to make thousands of sales. If you can make thousands of sales a month, you make a living at it. So you need a lot of images. You have to just always be submitting images constantly to get your catalog with them up there, and use multiple agencies. Forget about that exclusive extra percentages that you might make being exclusive to a certain agency. So again, older guys like me, we not too happy with the stock situation the way it is nowadays, but it's not going to change. It's the way it is. So you play by their rules and see if you could make some income doing it. Now, there's a lot of other ways, though, you could supplement your income. Still digitally, without creating prints. You could get a site like SmugMug, something like that, and you could put your images on SmugMug, and you could try to sell them that way. What I found is you just maybe can't just put a hodgepodge group of images up on SmugMug and say, here's my website, you know, go visit and buy images. It usually wouldn't work as well that way. What I found is if you could have more of a themed type website with SmugMug, and an easy theme is the city you live in. For instance, I live in Buffalo, it's Buffalo Niagara Falls area, and I have a website where I have just images of iconic landmarks in the area, including Niagara Falls. And people are interested, that live here, are interested in these images, and they'll go to SmugMug and purchase the images. And if you guys aren't familiar with SmugMug, and there's other places besides SmugMug that do the exact same thing. What is it? You upload your JPEG to them, and then you set up your account, and you could pick a lab. In the United States, there's a number to choose from. I use Bay Photo Lab in California. I think it's actually near San Francisco. And they do a great job. So what happens is someone goes onto my website at SmugMug, and they'll like this specific image, and they'll have all these choices. They could buy wallets to big, 24 by 28 prints of the image, all different sizes, all different types. They could buy metal prints, they could buy acrylic prints. Everything's on there. They pick the print they want. They pay SmugMug. SmugMug sends the image to Bay Photo Lab. Bay Photo Lab processes the image and mails it directly to the customer. SmugMug pays Bay Photo out of the money they took. They took from the customer. Then they take a percentage. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what it is. I think it's somewhere around 10–15%. And then you get the rest. You could say how much you want your image marked up too. So if Bay Photo Lab charges, let's say $5 for a specific size print, you could say 100% markup. So you're going to sell it for 10, or you could say 200% or 400%. It's up to you. You could say what the markup is involved, and then, like I mentioned, they pay Bay Photo for the processing. SmugMug keeps their percentage, and you get the rest. Works out very well. It's very seamless. The customer doesn't think they're dealing with 3 different entities, meaning you, SmugMug, and Bay Photo Lab. So it works out real well. Now, again, even if you are themed, let's say it's your city, you live in, Sedona, Arizona, and you have all these beautiful images from Sedona, Arizona. You put it on the website, and you just can't expect people to come stumbling to it. What I found, what works for me, is use Facebook. Facebook works very well. And what I do is you would find pages and groups that are involved in your city. For instance, in Buffalo we have, you're from Buffalo if ... That's just a group on Facebook. There's another group, you're from South Buffalo if ... And I'm sure there's tons of sites like this, or groups on Facebook like this. You're from South Chicago if ... Stuff like that. Just look for groups that belong to your city. Then, when you have a nice image, I process your image, Lightroom, whatever you use, and export it, but don't export it very large. Usually try to keep it 1200 pixels or less on the long edge. And put a watermark on it, but don't put Anthony Morganti photography, something like that. You want to put your website on there. So imagesofsouthchicago.com or whatever your website is, right? You put on there. And what I would recommend you do, you don't put it in the lower left, lower right, upper left, upper right. You don't put it there, and you don't put it in the middle. Put it in the middle though, but at the far right. All right, so the middle vertically, but the far right of the image. The reason being, when you put this, you post this now to these groups on Facebook, you're from Chicago if, or whatever. You post it there. People are going to comment, very nice image, and people are going to steal it. They're going to take it, and they're going to use it as their cover photo on their Facebook. And the cover photos usually are very narrow, so if you have your watermark to the lower left or lower right or in any of the corners, it's going to get kind of cropped out when people go to their page. But if you have it right in the middle to the right, their image of them, their cover image or their user image, whatever they call it on Facebook, won't cover it up either. So it'll be to the right, and people will see it and hopefully visit the website. So it's kind of free advertising that way. Not only that, post it to any television stations, their web pages. Typically, they're not the type where you could post it right to their wall, but you could post it and then they'll see it and they might put it on your wall. I've had that happen. So put it to any of the television stations in your area, radio stations in your area, and something else escaping me at the moment. Television stations, radio stations, and like places like in here we have a nature preserve, which is almost right in my backyard, Tiff Nature Preserve. They have a webpage, you post it there. Newspapers, here we have the Buffalo News, post it to their Facebook page. Again, you might not be able to put it on their wall, but you post it to them and they sometimes will put it on their wall. Again, make sure your website's on there. Even if they don't post it, let me give you an example. I posted some images to the Buffalo News Facebook page, of course, never made it to their wall. But an editor at the Buffalo News saw it and they ended up buying one of my images, not one that I happened to post, but they went to my website and they found an image they liked and they purchased one for the cover of one of their Sunday magazines. They have a couple different Sunday magazines. One is called Buffalo Magazine, the other one's called Discover Magazine. And the editor of Discover Magazine wanted one of my images for their cover. And that's how they saw it. And they ended up purchasing the images for their cover. TIFF Nature Preserve, it's going on currently right now. They emailed me. I posted images to their wall. They liked one of the specific images I posted. And last month they ran it on a billboard on Highway 33 coming into Buffalo. It was a billboard all last month there. Now this month it's on another billboard on the 190 coming into Buffalo. So this is how you get this exposure. You just keep putting these images on these different pages. Again, you might not make it, they might not post it to their actual wall, but an editor might see it, or somebody that is in charge of buying images for some reason might see it, and they'll visit that website and purchase images from you. So that's how you could sell some more digital images. This is without printing anything at all. And I think it would work. You have to be diligent about it. Well, I've proven it works because I've done it. So, but I think it would work for you. But you do have to be diligent about it. I'm not nearly diligent enough myself. I don't religiously post my images to all these different groups and pages, but I'm sure if I did, I'd get even more sales. So think of that, another way to sell some digital images. Now, the other thing is to selling prints. You could still use a website similar to SmugMug, maybe your own website. It could be even like a WordPress blog, and you have your images there, and people could order images. You could get a shopping cart program put on there. There's Wix.com, has free websites where you could get a shopping cart program on there, and people could order images, prints from you. You would either get them printed at a lab or print them yourself and ship them out. A lot more work involved. I strongly recommend that you go with SmugMug or one of those companies instead. But if you have a printer or if you have a lab that you're really happy with and they do really good work and they do it very quickly and you want to try it that way and you don't want SmugMug to make any money, then that is a viable alternative. Again, though, there's a lot more work. You have to either create that print one somehow. You're going to either print it yourself or have a lab do it. Then you're going to have to pack the image safely and mail it to your purchaser. So there's a lot more work involved, and I really don't recommend that you go that route. There is some opportunity, though, if you want to make prints and sell prints. And what you would do is, again, you got to really use your community. Coffee shops, little like botanical gardens, little like I don't know, little like stores that sell little like local things. I don't know how else to word it. But what you would do is you would have to print your prints yourself, and or get them printed. But hopefully, it doesn't cost you a ton of money. You get them framed and matted. You would go to these places, some coffee shops. So there's this coffee shop in, an interesting neighborhood, and your work would fit their decor. So you would approach the owner or manager. You'd say you'd like to hang up your work, and it's going to have prices on it. All they have to do is handle the money, and they could get a percentage. Usually the percentages are anywhere from 20 to 50%. I've never heard of anyone doing 10%. Mostly it's around 30%, meaning that you'll get 70%, they get 30%. Remember, you got to take into account your overhead, and your overhead is that frame, the mat, and the time you took, and of course the print itself. So A lot of people do supplement their income pretty well with this method. You go to the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Gardens and there's images of flowers that someone took inside the botanical gardens, and they're for sale. They're hanging up all through the botanical gardens, and the photographer, I can't remember his name, or I'd give him a plug. He has this little like, I don't know if it's a business card or a little plate near each image where his website is, so you could visit his website and purchase images, or you could buy that image right there at the, bring it over to the gift shop and pay for it. I'm sure he gets a percentage, and they get a percentage. So there's all these opportunities where you could utilize your community to sell images like that. Now, really to really benefit or to maximize your benefit by doing that, you really should print the images yourself. And I have some videos on how to print in Lightroom. And you really need a professional level printer. If you're just going to sell smaller images and stuff, you could probably get like a Canon Pixma Pro 100, Epson P600 printer would work real well. If you want to sell some larger pieces, then I would get like a Pixma Pro 1 by Canon or a P800 by Epson printer, so you could really print out larger prints. Now, there is a final way you could sell some prints, and that's through art festivals. And here in Buffalo, we have, at least they bill themselves as the largest art festival in the country, I think. It's not the world, maybe, but it's the Allentown Art Festival. And I've never been in it myself, but I go every year, and it is a very large art festival, and there's a number of photographers that have stands there. And the last 2 years, I've walked around and I've watched and I've tried to observe which stands sell the most prints. And it comes down to two general types of stands. Stands that have travel photography from iconic landmarks. There was this one guy, he had like pictures of the pyramids, he had like pictures of like Tuscany, the houses. He had like Greece with the very blue sky and the blue like adobe roofs that are in Greece. He had these iconic type shots. He had the Eiffel Tower shots. He had stuff like that. He sold a lot, and his images were beautiful. This is all assuming you're a competent, at least a competent photographer, hopefully a great photographer. And he sold a lot of images. The other group of people that were selling a lot of images were those that had local pictures of local buildings, things that are in Buffalo, historical things, whatever. They were selling a lot of images. The ones that weren't selling at all, and I felt sorry for them, is there were a lot of people that had like arty images of the water drops and a lot of macros of flowers, macros of marbles, things like that. Men, they were just sitting there, no people even looking at their stuff. So the images were technically perfect, but they're not something that most people, at least here in Western New York, were interested of hanging on their wall. So if you're interested in going into one of these art festivals, I wouldn't rush into it right away. I would go to one that's local to you first and see what is selling and really observe, see what they have, and make sure that you have something that you think would be sellable. Then what you have to do is you have to create the prints. And what I found is the photographers that seemed to sell the most, they had a lot of different sizes. They didn't just have large prints and they didn't just have small prints. The one photographer that was selling a lot of prints from travels, the one that had the shots of Tuscany and the Eiffel Tower and the pyramids, he had a large eye-catching print hanging. And then below that, he had smaller versions of it. And then below that, he had like a little, something that looked like it was built by himself. It was made out of wood that almost like, if you remember the old day when we used to go to the store and buy records, hold records. Well, this looked like it had like 8x10 prints. And the images were all framed except for those 8x10 prints. They were like in acetate plastic. And the pricing, the big print was like $300, $349, I think, for his larger print. The ones that were a little smaller were in the hundreds, 110. The ones that weren't framed and matted, those were all framed and matted. The smaller ones that were just in the acetate, he had a sale. I think it was like 3 for $15 or something like that. And I saw him selling big prints, and I saw a lot of people buying the smaller prints too. So you have a lot of varying sizes with a lot of, different pricing. So you could get the people, I mean, some people go to these things and they only have $20, $30 to spend. And other people go to these things and they have a charge card ready to go. So they're going to buy something larger. So you don't want to lose any sales because you don't have the right size print. So in this too, I should have said it, that, obviously it's going to take a substantial investment. You're going to need, to get a decent printer, you're going to need $500 to $1,000, maybe more. And the ink and all that other stuff, and the paper and the frames and the mats and the time to do all that. So it's going to take a lot of work. But research it, go to one of these art festivals that are near you, and take note of what is selling and what isn't selling. And then if you have something that you think would fit in the group of that selling, then next year when that art festival comes back, sign up for it and see if you could, do it. A lot of these photographers, they don't just go to the Allentown Art Festival. They travel to, there's like I guess, kind of a tour of art festivals they do. And that's something you might want to do. If you find that your images are really popular, you could make some money doing it. Again, though, it takes a commitment. All this really takes a commitment. You just can't dabble in it. From the stock photography to selling these images at art festivals, it's really something that you're going to have to commit yourself to. And more often than not, you're not going to just do one thing. You're going to do multiple different ideas. You might be at an art festival, but you also have your images in like 6 different coffee shops and a couple different restaurants, a few different hotels, and things like that. And wherever you think you could sell art. Oh, and another thing that just recently, my mother-in-law was in the hospital, and I was in the hospital, and I was looking, and there were photographs everywhere on every floor of that hospital of the Buffalo area. And they were large prints, 20 by 24 inch prints on wood. They were so expensive prints everywhere, and they were all of Western New York. And this is all the stuff I have. This is all the images that I have. And I thought to myself, why wasn't I the photographer that sold the hospital all these prints? So hospitals, really the sky's the limit. I'm sure there's about 400 places I can't think of at the moment that you walk in, a car dealership, anything. See if they'd be interested in either consigning your work, where you put it on the wall for sale, or in the case of the hospital, where you're selling them the print permanently to hang on their wall. Really, again, the sky is the limit. You just really have to be open and accessible to accept new ideas and try to get out there and get your work out there. And again, you want to try to get everyone to come to a website somewhere that then displays digital samples of your work so they could buy it digitally if they so choose. All right, so that's it for this episode of Photography is My Passion. I'd like to thank everyone that has emailed me about last week. I talked about how I hurt my back snow blowing. Thank you very much. I seem to have digressed a little bit this week, but when you're 56 years old, sometimes you don't heal as fast as you'd like. So thank you very much. I hope to be feeling much better very, very soon. I have the videos lined up to do for the macro photography. We'll be doing that video series very soon, so be looking for those. And next week on Photography is My Passion, I haven't really decided what we're going to talk about. So email me some suggestions and I'll be glad to talk about something you're interested in. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you guys soon.